This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash, and Team Valor. Wind whips past Metal as he flies over the ocean, his heading already locked in, Central City. Having consulted with his Chaos Emerald radar, he had discovered that 6 of the gems were already consolidated in orbit, likely aboard that space station from Eggman's announcement, while the last one is located in the aforementioned city. It is therefore logical to assume that sooner or later the Doctor will make an appearance there, meaning if Metal finds the Emerald, he will invariably find his creator. However, it seems that Eggman is not the only familiar face the android is fated to encounter, as when the location of the final Chaos Emerald comes into view, Metal catches sight of Tails, Amy Rose, and Knuckles, all converged on that spot, suggesting that he is not alone in his mission. Touching down beside them, Metal gives the trio a nod of greeting, intent on getting to work as soon as possible, though it seems this will have to wait, as from the looks he receives in return, it is clear that they were not expecting him. For the most part, Knuckles is able to mask his surprise with an expression of cool disinterest, like Metal's presence is beneath his notice, while in contrast, Tails is struck dumb, looking as if he's seen a ghost. However, Amy is an entirely different story, as she storms over the android and smacks the top of his head, while calling him a jerk for letting her think he was dead after witnessing his fall from Sky Sanctuary. Then, most perplexingly of all, she adds that she's glad he's okay, having seemingly done a complete 180 in terms of her mood in the span of a second. Recognizing that his absence has upset her, Metal attempts to apologize, giving a succinct account of where he has been and what has transpired over the last year, with Amy, Tails, and even Knuckles seeming intrigued by the idea of Scrapnik Island. In turn, Tails gives the Blue Bot a rundown of their own situation, from Sonic's arrest, to the appearance of the Black Hedgehog, to the fact that they are currently in the process of trying to locate the President's limousine, since they believe this will allow them to track down where Eggman is hiding. Without hesitation, Metal asks what he can do to help, with this earning him a surprised look from Tails, who comments that the android really has changed a lot thanks to his time on that island. Though being more than happy to accept assistance, the Fox Boy tells Metal that while they are all fugitives, Sonic is the most wanted among their group, so if he can act as a decoy to draw police and gun soldiers away from both the Blue Blur and the President, that would be a big help. Nodding his understanding, Metal prepares to take off, though before he goes, Tails patches him into their comms, meaning it will be easier to relay information back and forth, especially with everyone on the move. When this is done, Metal gets to work, activating his jet engine once more and blasting off, with it taking him very little time to attract police attention, as while he would never admit it to himself or anyone else, he is just as much of a show-off as Sonic, meaning that inconspicuousness is not one of his strengths. Speaking of Sonic, not long after he has begun his diversion, Metal hears the Speedster's voice in his head, courtesy of Tails' upgrade, with the Hedgehog expressing delight that Metalhead is back, since he never doubted he was alive even for a second. After all, they've got a rivalry to settle. In a deadpan tone, Metal replies that calling what they have a rivalry would be a misnomer, as he has demonstrated repeatedly that he is superior to his organic counterpart in every worthwhile metric. Though recognizing these words for the teasing they are, Sonic laughs that if the robot is so sure about that, then they can have a race when this whole fiasco is over, so he can put his money where his mouth is. Though Metal does not reply to this beyond a simple grunt of acknowledgement, Sonic can tell that the Blue Bot finds this prospect as enticing as he does. However, before more can be said on the matter, Tails cuts in, informing Sonic that he's locked onto the President's limo, so they should start heading over there now. Not needing to be told twice, Sonic conveys his understanding, then with a smile to his voice, says that he'll catch up with Tails and Metal real soon, before cutting communications. A moment later, Tails does likewise, his attention now on reaching the limo as well, while Metal begins his true diversion, doubling back the way he came and using his slipstream to flip his pursuers' cars before taking off once more. This naturally attracts the attention of an even larger group of police and gun soldiers, now using helicopters and armored trucks to keep him in their sights. This causes Metal to smile internally, as he had hoped they would take his bait. Now all he has to do is keep these elites busy long enough for Sonic and Tails to fulfill their objective. Needing to appear as though he's trying to escape the authorities, Metal briefly runs into oncoming traffic, using his super speed to ensure that he does not collide with anyone, though it seems Gun do not have the same compunctions, opening fire from one of their helicopters and forcing several cars to veer off the road and crash as they attempt to take Metal down. Recognizing that this strategy is untenable if his adversaries are willing to go to such lengths, the fastest machine in existence changes tack, leaping off the road and flying up the side of a nearby building before coming out on the roof. As he had hoped, the soldiers mistakenly believe that he is now trying to escape across the rooftops, and so abandon their assault on the highway in favor of trying to box him in. Thankfully, it is at this moment that Tails radios in once more, informing Metal that they've located Eggman and giving him the coordinates of their rendezvous with instructions to meet them once he's lost his pursuers. By now, 4 helicopters are encircling the Blue Bot, their spotlights and weapons all trained on him, while from a PA system, they demand he surrender, still under the misapprehension that he is Sonic. However, Metal has no intention of doing any such thing, and so begins his escape protocol, flying directly upwards as his jet engine begins whirring faster and faster to build up power. Then, when it has reached its maximum output, he shows his foes what true speed is, rapidly accelerating to Mach 6 and vanishing with only a sonic boom left in his wake. At such velocity, there is no chance of pursuit, with Metal feeling a distinct satisfaction at the knowledge that these humans will likely never forget what they have just witnessed, though it is slightly curdled by the fact that it is his doppelganger who will get the credit for his feat of speed. Nonetheless, Metal does not dwell on this, instead plotting a course for the coordinates Tail sent, with him being the first to arrive, even outstripping the Cyclone, which appears a few minutes later, carrying Sonic and all his friends. Nodding his greeting to the group, Metal asks what their objective here is, with Sonic explaining that Egghead's up on the space colony Ark, so they're gonna bust into his base and use whatever method he's using to get up there to pay the Doc a visit. Or beside him, Knuckles growls that he's gonna get even with that Batgirl who has the remaining pieces of the Master Emerald. Seeing the logic in Sonic's plan, and not really caring about Knuckles, Metal agrees to follow along, joining them as they make their way inside, until finally they come to a large locked stone door. Fretting slightly, Tails says they'll need to find a key, which means backtracking and maybe even going to the lower levels, though seeing this as more organic inefficiency, Metal simply tells them to stand aside, before running back down the corridor they just came through. For a moment, the heroes share a look, wondering what Metal meant by that, though their answer becomes clear a moment later when he comes shooting back into view, before barreling into the door at top speed. Thanks to activating his black shield at the last second, Metal himself is undamaged, though the same cannot be said for the stone, which has crumbled into pieces from the impact, proving itself no different from all the steel and concrete he would shatter during the excavation of Scrapnik Island. Rising to his feet and dusting silt from his cobalt paint job, Metal gestures for his allies to follow, and though he does not say a word, the organics cannot help but feel as though he is judging them from the look in his glowing green eyes. However, before they can progress, an enraged voice screeches that Metal is an ungrateful trash can, before demanding to know how dare he rampage through his master's base like this. Turning as one, the heroes see the speaker to be none other than Eggman, who declares that he will crush the 5 intruders and take the final Chaos Emerald for himself, before summoning out a large stone monster to destroy them. Inspired by Metal's straightforward thinking, Sonic tells his friends to go on ahead and that he'll catch up. Then, with a grin, he leaps into the air, dodging the rock creature's fist and kicking the machine atop its head, which he figures is how Eggman is controlling it. In this, he is entirely correct, as with the restraining mechanism disabled, the golem turns its ire on the Doctor, forcing him to deal with that, and allowing Sonic to meet up with the others, just as they're about to take off for the space colony Ark aboard a rocket ship. Unfortunately, even the flight to the Ark presents its own challenges to be overcome, as following an accidental collision with an asteroid, Knuckles shards of the Master Emerald are scattered into space, with the Echidna loudly trying to seize control of the rocket in a manner that makes Metal dearly miss the eternally silent Scrap. Nonetheless, this attempted mutiny results in a crash landing, with the team splitting up, as Knuckles goes to retrieve his prize, Tails attempts to shut down the laser cannon's defenses, and Sonic dashes away to plant a decoy Chaos Emerald in the power grid which has been designed to neutralize the other emeralds and detonate. This just leaves Metal and a rather annoyed Amy, who bemoans the fact that the boys are always leaving her behind, a sentiment Metal can quite understand, with him agreeing to stay by her side. This makes Amy smile, as she calls Metal a good friend, a surprise to him, as he did not realize she saw him as a friend. Though he does not object to the designation, instead simply nodding his understanding, and perhaps even reciprocation of the sentiment. Together, the pair then begin heading deeper into the Ark, figuring they can at least do some reconnaissance, since knowledge of the enemy base could potentially come in handy if plans go awry as they are wont to do. Alas, this exploration leads them right into the path of Eggman, who evidently was able to survive his encounter with the Golem, and is now bent on completing his scheme and taking revenge on his enemies. To this end, he attempts to take Amy hostage, figuring she can be used to make Sonic surrender, though this plan fails to take into account one thing, that being Metal, as when the Doctor aims the Eggwalker's gun at her, the fastest machine in existence leaps into action, grabbing the pink hedgehog in his arms and zipping away from his creator, in a peculiar inversion of his and Amy's first meeting. For a time, Eggman attempts to give chase, screaming that he should have melted Metal down into slag when he had the chance, though it quickly becomes apparent that he is no match for his greatest creation in terms of speed. Thankfully, he has a backup, and so with a cruel grin on his lips, radios Shadow, ordering him to take down the robotic hedgehog and bring the girl to him, since if left unattended, those two could be a major hassle. Intrigued by the notion of another fake hedgehog like that blue one he met in the city, Shadow assents to this mission, taking off at top speed towards the section of the Ark Eggman had said they were in. Being the ultimate life form, it only takes him a moment to catch up with Metal, though when he attempts to take Amy, the cybernetic speedster surprises him by braking suddenly and forcing Shadow to overshoot. Placing Amy on her feet once more, Metal then turns to face his discolored double, stating that he must be the black hedgehog Tails told him about, with Shadow sneering in turn that Metal must be the Doctor's failed creation run amok. Recognizing this is an attempt to make him angry so he'll make a mistake, Metal does not rise to the bait, instead throwing himself at Shadow who matches his speed, resulting in them clashing in the middle, forearm against forearm. Breaking apart, the pair next attempt more conventional fisticuffs, with Metal punching Shadow in the stomach, while the black and red renegade uppercuts his jaw, with it once again seeming as though their abilities are comparable. Staggering back, Shadow jeers this fake hedgehog is even more derivative of him than the last one, since he was created by the great Gerald Robotnik, while Metal was created by his vastly less talented grandson, evidently in an attempt to recreate the perfection that is the ultimate life form. Coldly, Metal retorts that he is a duplicate, yes, but of someone vastly more impressive than this long-forgotten relic of the past, a claim which clearly angers Shadow as he charges once more at Metal. Seeing an opening to end things while the black and red hedgehog is emotionally compromised, the blue bot readies a ring spark field, which he unleashes just as Shadow comes into range, figuring this should stun him long enough to be taken out of commission. However, just before the electrical field can make contact, the ultimate life form utters two words which change everything: Chaos Control. In an instant, Shadow is gone, having seemingly teleported at speeds which make Metal's Mark 6 showing from earlier appear sluggish in comparison, with the android being briefly left mystified as to where his opponent has gone. Though this mystery is quickly cleared up a moment later, as Metal feels some sort of energy attack strike his back before detonating, with a resultant explosion knocking him to the floor. Looking up, the blue-hued android sees Shadow standing over him, one hand pointed as if in preparation to launch another attack, while the other is locked tight around Amy's wrist. In a voice filled with menace, the artificial life form then orders Metal not to get in his way again, or he'll destroy him, before taking off once more while Amy cries out for a friend to help her. For a moment, the android simply lies there, struggling to regain control of his body after the damage that chaos attack just inflicted. Though refusing to be beaten, he eventually wills himself into motion. Though it wounds his pride to do so, Metal is logical enough to recognize that he cannot defeat Shadow on his own, and so his first act is to activate his internal comms and inform Sonic of the situation, before requesting he back him up in his attempt to rescue Amy. All his usual joking now absent from his tone, Sonic agrees that of course he'll help, telling the android to just give him the location. Knowing his creator well, Metal quickly surmises that Eggman will be on the command bridge, wanting to micromanage the final stages of his plan, with Sonic stating that he'll be there in a flash. In spite of himself, Metal cannot help but feel reassured at the other speedster's confidence, with it bolstering him to return to his feet and take off at a run, since he has no intention of being shown up by a second hedgehog today, meaning that when Sonic arrives at the door to the bridge, he is met by a somewhat battle-damaged but unmistakably determined Metal. Entering the round room together, the two heroes find Eggman still in his walker, with a gun arm pointed dangerously at Amy's head. In an exultant boom, the Doctor grins that he knew Sonic would come, though he did not think Metal had become so soft-hearted. Not that it matters, as he has no objection with his creation witnessing his ultimate victory. Bluntly, Sonic asks what Eggman's demands are to let Amy go, with the Doctor laughing that he wants Sonic's Chaos Emerald, ordering him to step forward and place it in the center of the room, while also commanding Metal to join him, since he doesn't want the devious droid out of his sight for a second. Knowing that Eggman holds all the cards here, Sonic and Metal do as they're bid, stepping forward, while Sonic himself lays the fake Chaos Emerald on the ground, before asking if the Doc is happy now. However, here Eggman replies that he isn't, but he will be momentarily, as with a malicious grin, he presses a button on his console. At once, a glass tube descends around the pair, sealing them in, while the Doctor jeers that he is not some fool who can be deceived by a fake Chaos Emerald, though he is glad they came, as now he can deposit them into space like the refuse they are. Furiously, Sonic declares that Eggman won't get away with this, while Metal glares savagely at his maker, but this does little to faze the rotund man, as he states that he already has, since the capsule they're in has been rigged to explode the second they clear the colony, so like it or not, this is the end. Then, with a second press of a button, Sonic and Metal feel themselves falling, the view of the bridge replaced with that of space, though this is hardly their main focus in this moment, as both have their eyes locked squarely on the timer at their feet, which is rapidly ticking down from 10. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.